On today's show, Darrell and I are talking about the difference between the mental and the strategic side of baseball. Welcome back to Strategic Baseball Podcast. Hey guys, man, it's a really exciting time for Darrell and I here at Athletic Mission Baseball Academy in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Preseason has been underway and guys are getting better and the conversations are awesome, man. We're having a lot of fun. Same for our remote guys, man. It's just a mindset. And we are, praying and hoping that everyone is able to have a season this year. Man, the kids really need to be playing, but we want them to play and we want them to play safe. So anyways, on today's show, we're going to be talking about the difference between the mental side and the strategic side of baseball. Geoff and Darrell here, and we are a part of a group of baseball instructors and coaches that you probably have never heard of before. We don't rely on cookie cutter evaluation to assess and judge baseball players. We don't judge players on physical talent alone. In fact, we do the exact opposite. We use strategic assessment and individualized training that we know can help any player get better. Because we are fighting against too many players and parents giving up on baseball too soon, we have to evaluate players differently. We have to do things more strategically. We don't have the ability to pick our players from a huge pool of talented players. Every day, we have to take players where they currently are and build on the skills they currently have. So, we focus more on building a strategic advantage mindset more than the physical talent early on. So how do we do that? How do we convince players to believe in themselves? If you ask some high school coaches, college recruiters, or pro scouts, they'll tell you that it's a waste of time. Some players just don't have it. Yet, it's happening every single day. It's happening through strategic assessment and hyper-individualized training that we call Strategic Advantage Baseball. This is Strategic Baseball Podcast, and these are our stories. All right, Darrell, as always, I'm going to let you kick this off. We're talking today about the difference between the mental and the strategic side of baseball.
Yeah, Geoff, I think a lot of the things that we talk about in the preseason is conversations that maybe a lot of parents and coaches and players really never think about until the season's about to start. And I think that's where you and I have kind of taken on this approach that there's really three aspects of baseball that we focus on. We focus on the physical training and the capability piece. And again, that's important. It's absolutely critical to being a good baseball player, whether it's hitting, pitching, fielding. And then we talk about the mental side of it, which I think you and I kind of define the mental side a little different than what, the average mental game coach out there is doing it. We define it kind of helping the players organize their thoughts around what they're specifically trying to do, whether it's hitting, pitching, or fielding, and then going even a little deeper down that rabbit hole. And then the third piece that we focus on, which is, the key to what you and I do here at Athletic Mission, is the strategic side of it. It is literally helping each one of these players, whether they're pitching or hitting, having a game plan. And I think sometimes we got a tendency to kind of look at that from a 10,000 foot view and really just kind of leave it there. We just kind of talk as far as pitchers. We'll have a scouting report that says, hey, we want to pitch this guy away, or we want to pitch this guy in. And honestly, man, that's just not specific enough for us. So when we start working with our guys and we really start coming through the preseason and really getting a feel and mastering the pitches that we have to trust that we're going to use in the in season, then I think that's the key. Because the reality of it is, and again, we have what we have once the season starts. So and I know we talked about this last week in a couple of shows, that how important preseason is to us, that it's not just getting in shape and kind of conditioning the body and the arm. Like literally we take the preseason to get game ready. And I think that focus is again, I don't care what level you play at, whether it's high school, college, or pro ball, that the players that have that sense of understanding that, hey, preseason ain't just about getting ready for the season. It's about being ready for the season. It's not just about physically getting in shape and getting my arm in shape. It's like getting my mind right too, and understanding like what the first couple of weeks of the season looks like, who we're going to be playing, and kind of starting in their mind game planning for that team they're going to play against, and each one of the players they're going to play against, and hitters they're going to face, or pitchers they're going to face. And I think a lot of times guys that get off to a slow start is because they just kind of piddle fart through the preseason, and that's some coach's fault, that's some player's fault, or a combination of both. And I think what happens is then all of a sudden the intensity, the reality of the game day shows up, and these guys haven't flipped the switch yet. And I think that's what a lot of people believe. Like you can just go from preseason to end season and kind of flip on the competitiveness switch. And you and I see it every year. And I know we'll see it again this year. Guys that just haven't been focused on creating the strategy and kind of moving into that strategic thinking as the season starts. And again, some of it might be our fault as coaches and instructors that we really don't teach them this side of the game. We don't teach them strategy. We don't teach them personalized strategy based off of their pitches. And so that's a big emphasis of what we do here. That's a big emphasis of what you and I have been doing. And man, what's cool about it is that it's fun. It's fun to actually coach that way. It's fun that you don't feel like you got to call the pitches. You don't have to, you can honestly walk these guys through different scenarios and help them start thinking through what it really takes to read and study a hitter, or read and study a pitcher, and kind of see what that pitcher does or what that hitter does. And I think what happens, Geoff, and you and I see this all the time, is when these kids really get that aspect, they understand that the physical side of the game is important. They understand that practice is important, but they also are starting to understand that not just how I practice, but what I take away from practice. And can I take that mastered skill I have and create a strategy against an opponent? And I think that's the bridge that you and I have been trying to build between the physical side and we call it the mental bridge. Like, here's the mental bridge. Now, how do we take our skills and think our way to strategy, and then go physically sync all three of those up together on game day and play? Because at the end of the day, that's the reality of baseball, whether we want to admit it or whether as coaches we can't explain it very good, or it's maybe not the way we were taught the game. But the reality of it is I think a lot of us coaches have forgot how hard baseball really was, and that to the way we look at the game and the way we prepare is not the way everybody else looks at the game and sees the game. And I think when you see documentaries like Michael Jordan's documentary, hey, a lot of his teammates didn't see the game like he saw the game. And again, it wasn't that he tried to force everybody to see the game the way he's seen the game, but you had to play within that system. And I think that's the key to baseball, because it's such that unique, individualized real team sport that if you don't understand, no matter what position you play, if you don't understand your role and responsibility and all the work that goes into that specific role and responsibility, then once the game starts, it's almost impossible for you to truly have a strategy against somebody that's as good or better than you. And I think that's where we lose a lot of kids. I think we lose a lot of them as far as they struggle with confidence. And again, because you and I see it all the time, man, a lot of these kids, it's not a lack of physical capability. When they're young, then you know what? Every player has a strength issue versus what we wish they would be. And some of it is just literally letting these kids grow and develop. But at the same time, if we focus only on that strength issue, and yet they're going to go play in real baseball games, then we've missed the boat. At some point in time, we got to let these kids know, whether they're 8 or 18, that, hey, man, what you have right now as we move from preseason to in season is what you're going to play with this season. And, dude, that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We got to quit making these kids feel in season that they should have done more in the off season. It don't matter. The off season's over. The preseason's even done. We got to be focused on in season. Like, what are we capable of doing? How do I take that skill set, that whatever it is, whether it's your pitches or your swing or the way you see the ball and all the different things that we teach in baseball, it's got to show up on game day as some sort of strategic plan versus an opponent. And again, I think sometimes we start talking about strategy and it kind of overwhelms people. They think it's got to be some, super deep, intricate plan. And it can be. You can overload these kids with data, and some of them can take that data and process it, and some of them don't have a clue. And we've seen that from the pro level down, that some guys love data and some guys are like, dude, shut up and get out of my face with that. You know what I mean? But I think what happens is, if we really want to start using all the data, the stats, and all these tools and all the different things that are out there at coaches' disposals now, then we got to start training these kids younger to understand that, hey, not only is there seasonal development that we go through every year, and once we get from the off season to preseason, there's this transition that needs to happen. And then from the in season from the preseason to the in season, there's a transition that needs to happen. We as coaches got to make that transition with them. We got to be able to say, hey, now we got to focus purely on, okay, this is who we're playing this week. And here's what their hitters are doing. Here's what we see in them. And we got to create a strategy and a game plan. And I think what happens, Geoff, is when we finally get to the point where our physical capability and that mental side, the way we think, the way we organize, and I think we got to get out of that positive self-talk mindset. When we talk about the mental side, too many players think it's when something goes wrong, or they're not thinking clearly, or they don't think positively about it is. And dude, that couldn't be farther from the truth. There's so much garbage out there about what we can do. And again, you and I explain this to players every week. And I don't care who hears this. This is a fact. If you can't physically do it, and you don't have your skills mastered, or you trust it, and mastered don't mean perfect. There's no perfection in baseball. There's no perfect in pitching. It just means that you feel like you can honestly throw that pitch on purpose to a location. If you don't have those two things right, then positive self-talk don't work. You can't sit here and positive self-talk your way into a lack of or fixing a lack of physical capability. But I think that's what we've turned the mental side of baseball into. It's almost like, okay, I can't do it yet, so we kind of got this fake it until you make it mindset. And dude, that's a joke. And from the preseason to the in season, especially when we're transitioning from preseason to where we should be practicing and mastering the skills that we're got to trust that we're going to use in a real game once the season starts. If we don't get that piece right, then these kids, it don't matter what they say, man. The positive self-talk or the reaffirmations or whatever we try to convince these kids they ought to be doing, it's just not right, man. And so it isn't until they trust what they're going to do in season and they have a plan, they have a strategy, now we can use positive self-talk. But if we don't have a skill set that we trust, if we don't have a strategy, then positive self-talk is just wishful thinking and luck. And man, it just don't play that way. And so that's why you and I wanted to have this conversation with everybody today. It's kind of like, hey, there's nothing wrong with positive self-talk. There's nothing wrong with focus. There's nothing wrong with all the things that go with what, today's world says the mental side of pitching is. But the reality of it is that the mental side is just what you think. And if you think that you got skills that are truly mastered and that you have a strategy to go pitch against this hitter today, then the reality of it is you're going to be a lot more apt to go execute a game plan versus if you don't really have those pitches mastered, or you don't trust that pitch, and now you find yourself in a situation in account that you don't feel like you have a strategy, then the odds of you being successful or you executing that pitch is not going to be enhanced by positive self-talk. It's only going to be enhanced by us learning how to master that pitch. And I think, unfortunately, that's where we see the confusion today. And that's where you and I, again, we tried to build this bridge from the physical capability, the mental aspect, the way we think, and then how does that translate into strategy? And so I think, Geoff, man, I know this is probably a little deeper than a lot of the conversations, but that's kind of what you and I promised this group, this audience of people, that we're not just going to go with this surface level conversations, that we were going to talk about the real things that we really work with guys every day down here at Athletic Mission. And again, with our remote clients. And again, these are not easy conversations, but the reality of it is, I think the best coaches out there have these conversations. I think the best coaches out there understand that there's more to the mental side of baseball than just the negativity, or whenever stuff ain't working and they're healthy and they can't figure out what mechanically is wrong with them, that it must be a mental issue. And I think, unfortunately, that's what a lot of players walk away with. I know a lot of my private clients for the last 15 years, we've had numerous conversations about that. You know, they say I'm physically healthy, so it must be something mentally wrong with me. And man, that is just a crazy place to have these guys thinking and have their mindset in. And man, it's a lot of times it's hard to get them out of it once they truly feel like the mental side is some kind of deficiency or something wrong. So that's kind of, you know, me putting it out there today of let's have this conversation and let's see what we can do to kind of to reel these guys back in and get them focused on the reality of not just that, you know, in season is about them, but the reality that in season is about the opponent and how we create a strategy. And we can make a million excuses on why things ain't working or what ain't going right. But at the end of the day, most of the time, for pitchers especially, it comes down to mastered pitches they trust, and then having a strategy to execute a pitch in a certain situation and count. And really, that's what we narrow it down to. It's one pitch at a time. It's one situation and count, and one pitch at a time. And so hopefully the big takeaway from this is that there's more to the mental side than just negativity. You know, there's more to baseball than just my physical capability. And that the reality of it is we work from off season to preseason to in season. There has to be that mindset shift from, you know, me, from my training to me practicing to me getting ready to go strategically play against an opponent.
Yeah, Darrell, that was good. And I think there are coaches out there that want to take the approach that you and I talk about, and they want to have these conversations. But man, it requires you to invest in each of the individual, taking the time to help them figure out where they are at and what they're going to take with them in games that's going to give them a strategic advantage over an opponent, helping them make this mindset shift. Like to like you said, to be ready to play a game, not get ready, but be ready, especially in the preseason. So we need to prioritize teaching our players how to play baseball against an opponent. You know, and on the hitting side, we talk about the situation account, what we know about the pitcher, what they know about us, what do we want to do, and what pitch. You know, the hitters are wanting to have the type of conversation. They see the mindset shift it brings them, and it brings confidence to them when they finally and actually have a strategy. And so the preseason for us is about them feeling good and trusting their plan to be able to stick to it. Because like I said on other shows before, is we as hitters want to limit the mishits. We want to swing at our pitches, and we want to let the pitches that we don't want go so that we can get those extra 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hits which would drastically change your season at the high school and college level, and 18 to 20 hit at the pro level, and you're getting paid, man. So, but how do we limit the missed hits, and how do we start swinging at good pitches and taking pitches that we don't want? Strategy, man. Having a strategy against an opponent. And what you end up seeing is when they have a strategy, they now have those better at bats. They limit those missed hits, and now they're taking pitches that they don't want. And now they are the guy that the coaches trust, the guy that teammates and other parents want at the plate. And now they're the guy that gets paid. But hitting, man, it's a conversation, you know, and Kevin Wilson's pretty active on social media and talking about hitting being a conversation. And he's right, you know, talking through the 12 count and what you would do or what you wouldn't do, thinking through what the pitcher might have us do or might do to us based on what they know about us. So Darrell, man, I know that there are coaches that want to take this approach. And, you know, you and I got a few coaches that were taking them through our process, and they're starting to get it. But it does take one, you know, taking the time with each individual. And trust me, it'll be well worth it to take the time as a coach to dig deeper and help these guys develop a strategy to maximize their development. And man, they're going to help you win games.
Absolutely. And you know what, Geoff, the one thing I want to wrap with, because I really do want the players and the coaches and the parents to grasp this piece, because this is real as it gets, man. I've done private clients with pro and college guys for 15 years. And again, that is what it is. But I've had literally hundreds of conversations with some of the best pitchers that walk the face of this earth. And every one of them that has been really, really good, that is either pitched in the big leagues or had a legit chance to pitch in the big leagues, they get this piece of it. They get that the mental side is not the negativity or the way I do things. They understand that the mental side is really my thought process that goes into how I decide what I'm going to do. Then I take that and create a strategy versus an opponent, versus that hitter. And so I can't reiterate this enough, whether you're looking for the magic pill or kind of that magic wand or whatever, this is it. If you grasp the difference between my physical capability, the mental aspects of how I honestly see the game and how I take that information and organize my thoughts to help me make decisions, then I create a strategy versus each hitter. That's what the best players in the world take out on game day. And you don't have to be a pro player to think that way. We teach it every day down here. We teach 12, 13, 14-year-olds. Do they get it to the level that our pro guys or college guys do? Not yet, but they shouldn't, because they don't have the physical capability yet that these other guys have. But what they can start understanding is, how do I read and study a hitter? How do I read and study a pitcher? And kind of seeing the game in a way that will open their mind to thinking the right things at the right time that will help them make better decisions in their pre-pitch routine. And when we get that piece right, then we always see these kids play better. That don't mean it's perfect. That don't mean it is. Baseball's just not a perfect game. But the reality of it is, when we kind of change the way they think about the mental side of it, because we don't want them to stop thinking. We just want them to think the right things. We want them to be looking for the right things. And so once you understand that the mental side of baseball is really how each individual player is looking for the right things that they need to execute a strategy that they could actually use in a real game, then the kids get it. I don't care what age they are. We as coaches got to be willing to explain that side of it and not just try to mindlessly do drills and pray that turns up on game day, because it really don't work that way. That mental bridge about how we think from how we physically practice and do what we do to how do we create a strategy against an opponent on game day is the mental side of it, and we need to teach it better. And again, I think that's been a big emphasis on what you and I have tried to do over this last year down here at Athletic Mission. And it's going to continue to be as long as you and I, because we know that this works, that we're going to make it a big emphasis on how we train and develop players. And what's cool about it, Geoff, is the kids down here are eating it up, man. They love it. They love these conversations, man, for real.
Right. And like you said, we have these same conversations with the 12, 13, 14-year-old that we have, or with our older high school, college, and even pro guys. They may not fully grasp it, but the piece that they do grasp, and they use it in a real baseball game, because during our post-game evals, the evaluations are good, and these kids have real conversations about how they perform, and they're able to talk through what they were seeing or what they were thinking and what adjustment they made. And this is when you see tremendous growth. You and I talk about this all the time, that growth happens during in-season based on the type of conversations that we have with them. And, and how they process and how they react to the game, what they focus on, and then how they prepare for the next game. And then one other thing that I want to bring up that you brought up last night when we were talking is that guys are not born with this. They may be gifted genetically, physically, but when it comes to how you watch a baseball game,
Absolutely.
or how you see the game and how you game plan and how you adjust,
and that's a great thing to finish on. That, hey, man, skill development is one thing, but strategy and going and executing a strategy on game day is truly what baseball is all about, man. And again, that's what makes it great, dude. That's why we love it.
For sure. So, hey, thank you all for checking in and tuning in on this episode. Again, if you guys are finding any value in these episodes, go ahead and leave us an objective review, and then head over to strategic-baseball.com and submit your email to join our circle. And Darrell and I got some cool stuff we're working on. In the meantime, we'll check you guys, and we'll see you guys in the next episode next week.